What it do? Dream team. It's your boy D Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are at things they don't tell you about Australia until you move. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, give the video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Talk to me.
So you're thinking of moving to Australia, the land of opportunity, the place you can live out your dreams for the rest of your life, but you've never been there before. What kind of idiot's going to move to the other side of the world and they've never been there before? Oh wait, we've never been to Brisbane before we moved here. Well, to stop you being an idiot like me, I'm going to share with you the things that you should know before you move to Australia.
I really like him, bro. He's really cool. He's really cool.
Now, I've forgotten how many there are in this, so you're just going to have to watch along. Everyone's always concerned about the wildlife in Australia.
The F is that? What the F was that? I thought a porcupine at first, but nah, what was that?
I'm not going to tell you about things that are going to bite you or try to kill you, because the wildlife is awesome. But the best animal is probably not the one that you think. The best Australian animal is the bin chicken. What the freaking hell is a bin chicken, I hear you say? Well, it kind of looks like a chicken, and it gets food out of the bin. Have you never seen Bluey? The bin chicken is the best Australian animal because when you first see one, you can't quite figure it out. You see one just there stalking around, looking for scraps, like a good chippy, and you can't quite figure out, is this a beautiful, graceful animal, or does it look like a chicken with kind of a dinosaur's face and
I swear to God,
bill beak thing? The answer is, no one knows.
So do they eat anything besides trash? Like, do they eat, like, I don't know, like any kind of animals, or do they just get all their food from the bins? And how do they deal with that kind of diet, bro? Just eating trash. I don't know.
I mean, if you are a nature person, you probably do. But when you move to Australia, you'll see bin chickens all around, because let's face it, it's pretty easy to get food out of a bin. And you'll just want to sit there and stare at the wonder and trying to figure out whether you actually like them. But you will. Australians sound funny. What does that even mean? Are you supposed to laugh at them? Everyone that lives in different parts of the world always sound a bit weird. What would the world be like if we all sounded the same? God forbid they all sound like me. But when you move here...
If we all sounded the same, what would the world be like? I don't know. But I love the Australian accent.
You're probably going to change the way that you speak. Now, this isn't to fit in, or because you want to sound cooler. Australians do sound pretty cool.
But mate, all I had was me jocks on. I was chasing him up the street.
But weirdly not if you're in Australia. Just to everyone else, I guess. But you're going to change the way you speak because you're fed up of getting weird looks. All of the normal sayings and mannerisms that you've grown up with in the country that you're from are probably going to sound a bit weird to an Australian. For example, in the UK, alright? That's a pretty normal greeting. Not pretty as in good looking, just it's normal, okay? But to an Australian, if you're going to ask them if they're alright, it's going to blow their mind. They're going to lay awake at night thinking to themselves, am I actually alright or not? And the same thing will happen to you when conversely.
They're gonna lay at night. They're gonna lay awake at night thinking to themselves, am I actually alright? Is that Australian? Would that happen? UK person walk by, alright? Oh my gosh, this is gonna haunt me forever. Am I alright? Am I truly deep down? Now I'm questioning life.
Firstly, they meet you and they ask, how's it going? Sorry for the Australian
accent.
How's it going?
How you going?
Change the way I speak. But to you, if you're not used to hearing it like that, how's it going? It's going to keep you awake at night thinking to yourself, well, I don't know. Does he want to know everything that's happened to me during that day? The chances are that the Australian doesn't care. Probably about as much as you care when you ask them if they're all right. Mental health is a really important thing, by the way. So to avoid being the only weirdo in town that talks the way that you do, you're just going to change. And you're going to end up realising that the new way that you talk is the superior way. I don't even know how we used to say all right. So insincere. Now, if your basis for Australian climatic extremes just comes from the TV or what you've heard an American say on YouTube, then you're not wrong in assuming that Australia is a very hot country. But it's not all hot, and not all of the time. For example, there are seasons. If you live in Melbourne, then maybe there's more seasons in a day than other places. But there are seasons. And the one thing that no one tells you is that you're probably going to acclimatise. I mean, not probably. That's a natural human response to anything, in particular when you experience extremes in temperature. So in your first winter in Australia, when all you've got is t-shirts, shorts and a few pairs of thongs, you're going to be bloody shocked when you realise it gets really cold. Now, not as cold as the Northern Hemisphere. Jesus, I don't know how I would cope with another winter in the UK. But living up here in sunny Queensland, where we're used to pretty much late 20s, early 30s and hotter for most of the year, when that sun goes down and it drops to single figures, it's like living in Antarctica. Notice how I changed it. Antarctica, now I live in the Southern Hemisphere. Remember?
Yeah, one thing I don't like is cold. I can do hot. I can't do scorching hot. As long as I got air conditioning, though, I can do hot. I can't do cold. My body, it's not built to handle cold. I hate cold with an absolute passion. Like cold, it's not it for me. It's not it for me.
Living in Antarctica. Notice how I changed it. Antarctica, now I live in the Southern Hemisphere. Remember, change your lingo. So before you move here and you decide, I'm never going to need all of those coats and jumpers and anything that's going to keep me warm at all, think again, my friend. Sure, you're not going to use it for most of the year, unless you live in Melbourne. But when it gets cold, you're going to bloody wish you packed it. That tip might save you a few bucks from having to go down to Kmart. You're welcome. But do go to Kmart, it's fantastic. And no, you won't save any money. You're still going to spend it there, just on something you didn't realise you needed. Now, this one has caught me out because I'm a numpty. And no, it's not drive on the left. You'd be pretty stupid if you came to Australia and didn't realise that people drive on the left here. But coming from a country that also drove on the left, this one caught me out. And then I had to pay a fine because they love fining you in Australia. So when you are driving around and you realise you don't want to drive around anymore, make sure you park in the direction of travel. I didn't even know this was a thing until I got a ticket for parking the other way around. Now this one will particularly catch you out when you're looking for a parking space and you're driving around for ages looking for one, and then there's one on the other side of the road, and you realise that you kind of have to do a little U-ey and turn around rather than just nip in like we do in the UK, where there's so much more competition for parking spaces. That's probably why they don't park in the direction of travel. They just don't give a fuck. They just get in the car parking space before some other fucker does. Well, if you want to have that mindset in the land with no worries, you're going to have to pay for it. You don't even realise it until you get done. And then you look at all of the rest of the cars that are parked there, and you realise they're all nice and neatly parking in the right way. Is this a thing that happens in most countries? This is probably the one that really blew my mind. And as you can tell, I'm still a little bit annoyed about having to pay a fine for it. But you won't.
Yeah, I didn't know this. This happened to me in the U.S. I didn't get a ticket. But I was like, I parked my car like the wrong way. Like it was in front of a house. It was like the opposite way of traffic. And like my friends were like, bro, you got to turn your car around. Like you can get a ticket for that. And I was like, you can get a ticket? For parking? He's like, it's not parked the right way. And I was like, bro, I've never heard of that in my life, but I guess in America you can get a ticket for that as well. But do I agree with it? No, like because I just want to park. But I guess you got to do things a certain way. So yes, I guess it is a thing here. I had never noticed it until my friends told me about it. So keep the video rolling.
Won't catch me out again. Oh no. Now I'm not gonna lie, you might not realise this unless you're a bit of a dinosaur and you still pay for things in cash. But in Australia, you might not pay the right.
Why you have to show the old lady and say unless you're a dinosaur? Why you had to do that? Why do you have to show her and say unless you're a dinosaur? Took me a second to catch on to it. Okay. I'm good.
A bit of a dinosaur and you still pay for things in cash. But in Australia, you might not pay the right price. Now this can seem a bit confusing, so I'll explain what I mean. If you bought something that was $2.99, that's a joke. What in Australia is $2.99? Okay, but let's be more serious. If you bought something that was $5.99, much better, then you'd expect to pay $5.99. So you'd give over $6 and stand there with your paw out, just waiting for some change. Wrong. In Australia, the lovely cashier is just going to take your money, smile at you and ask if you want a receipt. You don't get any change for that. Same thing if you're paying $5.97. No change, mate. Now I know that you're thinking to yourself, what a type who's worried about getting a few cents in change. Well, I'm sorry that I can't get away from my British roots that
I feel that.
And we normally collect all the pennies and just put them in a jar. We'll never take down the bank until it's really full. It weighs about 20 kilos. But
I watched that movie Queen Pins. Kristen Bell, she said, hey, her quote was, if you take care of the pennies, or look out for the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. Watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves.
In Australia, the smallest denomination is 5 cents. So this whole idea of, no, you're not going to get change, does work both ways. If by some weird coincidence, your final bill ends up being $6.04, you might be able to get away with just giving them $6. Save yourself 4 cents. That doesn't
There you
really
go.
seem like much of a victory. I'm sure in the whole
Nah.
balance of this karma in the universe, this little sense debate, sense, probably works itself out in the end. Nah, it's like gambling. It definitely works out in the shop's favour. Now, this next one's for you youngsters out there. Now, if you're a young and probably entitled person, there are some difficulties with moving to Australia, in the sense that you can't just move here. I mean, you can. If you're young enough, you're probably going to qualify for a working holiday visa. But you can't live here long term without getting a proper visa. And there's so many of them to choose from. And the thing that I didn't realise until I'd got mine was that not all of them provide the same level of benefits. And when I say benefits, I don't sound like I'm trying to sign on a Centrelink. No visa allows you to qualify for that. But the general way to think about it is that you want to go as quickly as you can to try and get permanent residency. Because if you're here on a visa that doesn't give you permanent residency yet, you might find that you have to pay for some things that you'd normally qualify for free if you were a permanent resident. Like if you've got kids and you think school's going to be free. Wrong. There is going to be a bit of a contribution. You'll have to factor that into your budgeting. Medicare and universal health, that's not always free for people on certain visas. So whilst I'd recommend to
That makes
anyone to
sense.
come to Australia on whatever visa is appropriate for you, I would recommend trying to find out as quickly as possible what the best route for you is to get permanent residency. And if you don't know, it pays to speak to the experts. Whether you're thinking about Australia or whether you're already in Australia and you want to find out this way to get stuff for free as a permanent resident, the gold
Yeah, I feel like you always, hey, before you go anywhere, I feel like you got to get your research done. You got to research about what's the best route for you, what's the best path for you. And I feel like it would be, yeah, it would be a little dumb not to do any kind of research before you took off. That's crazy. But I guess people who live crazy have fun. I don't know.
Standard, then you're best off to speak to a MARA registered agent like True Blue Migration Services. Mention us today and you'll receive a free
Let's get
visa
the sponsors.
for your situation. It doesn't matter where you are in your visa or migration journey, it always pays to speak to one of Australia's oldest and largest group of reputable agents. I hate it when people tell me that they've been ripped off by dodgy agents. Follow the hundreds of positive reviews and I'll leave all the details down in the description. And then when you get to Australia, you're going to want to experience some culture. Now, I'm not talking about those cultural things normally in Sydney, like the Opera House or the bridge. There are other bridges than the Sydney Harbour Bridge, or the art scene in Melbourne. I don't know why I had to dance like
I swear to God, the art scene. I really like him, bro. He's entertaining.
The greatest cultural icons in Australia aren't really in the big cities, and you're going to have to go elsewhere to see the big things. Now, if you're wondering what are the big things, they can be anything that's big, like the big banana in Coffs Harbour, or the big pineapple in the Sunshine Coast. We even found a big pumpkin. Yeah, it wasn't actually that big, but it was bigger than a normal pumpkin, I think. These weird big things that you can normally find in smaller country towns all around Australia are the greatest thing about Australian cultural identity. Why?
Really?
I don't know, because it's weird. But I'm telling you now, you will experience more joy from seeing a weird big thing in some part of Australia that you thought you'd never really go to, than spending God knows how much it costs just to walk over the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
So just go, when you get to Australia, just go look for the big things. That's gonna make you happy. That's gonna bring you joy. Find all the big things.
You're going to spend money on Australia. I tell you what I'd rather do. Go out and see some big thing for free and then spend all the money that I would have spent on the expensive cultural thing in the pub. Now, if the idea of universal healthcare has already blown your mind, then here's one in Australia that's probably going to blow the other side. You might need ambulance insurance. What's ambulance insurance, I hear you say? Well, it's insurance if you need an ambulance, of course. Ambulances aren't always free in Australia, even if you're on Medicare. Now, in the sunny sunshine state of Queensland, where things just make sense, ambulances are free. But if you're already thinking to yourself that you want a bit of cold and you want to go and live in Melbourne, well, in Victoria, you better need ambo insurance, or you're going to drive yourself to the hospital. Now, I don't know why ambulances aren't always free in Australia, and I'm not going to go into the politics of it, but the last thing you need when you've just snapped or dislocated or a bit of your body's leaking some fluid that you don't want it to leak, the last thing you're going to want to worry about is the incredibly high cost of having to go in an ambulance.
That's us for Americans know exactly what you're talking about. Americans know exactly what you were talking about, my guy. The last thing we will not call an ambulance. unless it is you're almost laying on your deathbed. You can't move. You can't be. Nobody can help you move. You can't move. Something's broken. So, other than that, you're not calling an ambulance. You're gonna you figure out how to get there without it, because that ambulance is gonna absolutely bankrupt you.
Think of it like kangaroo insurance. No one thinks they need that until one hops out and you're on the road in the middle of the night. Australia has states and territories. And I know that's not a weird thing. Or if you're thinking about moving to Australia and that's the first time you've heard it, you're going to probably need to do a bit more research, my friend. But that in itself isn't the weird thing that you need to know about. It's the fact that Australia has different states and different territories, meaning that each one has its own slight different variation on the law. Now, these variations can be wonderful sometimes, like the ability to grow marijuana in the ACT, if that's what you're into. But not all of them are as useful. For example, in Queensland, I can't just go and buy alcohol in a supermarket. There is no beer section in Aldi. I mean, this isn't a major inconvenience, and I really enjoy going to Dan's. It's like being a kid in a lolly shop. But this one I have to apologise, because if you're taking all of your advice about Australia from weirdos like me, you need to be open-minded to the fact that there's going to be some weird idiosyncrasies with whatever wonderful states you end up living in. In the country that you used to live in, how often did you drive around with your driver license in your pocket? Sometimes when you pop to the shops, especially now when you can just pay for things on your phone, you might not realise that in most of Australia, you need to drive around with your driver license. Not only is it a fantastic form of ID, but driving around without it is also illegal. Yet another thing they can fine you for. In the UK, if you got pulled over and you didn't have your driver license on you, you had about 7 days to report to a local police station with a little slip that they give you and show them your driver license. Nah, in Australia, you better have it on you, mate. And unlike my parking fiasco, I hope I've always got my driver license on me so I don't get fined. Would they even arrest you for that? Now, on the theme of saving you money if you're moving to Australia with no knowledge about this wonderful country, this one's going to be a biggie. Never buy a six-pack. Don't do it. It's the most ridiculous waste of money ever. Just buy a slab. Chances are you're going to probably like it anyway, and the cost difference between buying a six-pack and a slab actually isn't that much when you realise it.
Dang, the six-pack was... Jesus Christ, there's no way. No way. No, I know, like I say, I've seen so many videos where they tell me like the beer and cigarettes and stuff is like so much more expensive, and so I shouldn't be surprised at this point. But Jesus.
And the cost difference between buying a six-pack and a slab...
No, that's not possible, bro. That's legit. No, moving to Australia would definitely sober me up. I'll tell you that 100%. No doubt about it. Would definitely, for sure, sober me up. I would not touch another beer again. What's the real? This kid 20. This says $23.49 for a six-pack, bro. 55 for what? 24 beers is there in there? Nah. Nope. Can't do it.
Actually isn't that much when you realise it will make your eyes water and wonder why in the hell did you buy a six-pack in the first place. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. If you go to our family friends Dan Murphy's and you have one of those gold member cards, I probably carry that around more than I do my driver licence, then every now and again you're going to be able to buy a six-pack for proportionally the same price as if it was in a slab. That's when you can try that new beer that you've been wanting to try, that you know you're probably going to like anyway, so why are you buying a six-pack? You should have just bought a slab. Look, I'm even talking myself out of it. Don't buy a six-pack. They cost too much and you're always going to wish that you had 7. That's a joke. You're going to wish you had more. When you look at prices in Australia, your immediate reaction is to think, that's f***ing expensive. And you're right, it is. But if you hadn't noticed that most of the things in Australia are priced per week, then you're going to realise that it's even more f***ing expensive. Now, coming from the UK, having something priced per week was a weird and alien concept to me.
Yeah,
pretty much everything.
Then when I hear that, it is kind of like weird to me because, I don't know, you're just so used to, I guess because it's just something that I'm not used to. That's why it would be weird. It's just something that I'm not used to because I'm so used to monthly, like most things being monthly payments or at the least bi-weekly payments. So every week, that's different for me. But and then speaking on the probably a high expensive, like Australia does get paid a lot more than I feel like a lot of other countries. The people get paid a lot more, so it's like you can cry about how expensive things seem, but when you're making a whole lot more money, it kind of balances itself out if you're not coming out better over there. So, but keep it rolling.
there was paid monthly. And in Australia, lots of things are paid monthly, particularly bills and utilities. But they still price it per week. It's because everything is so expensive anyway that they're trying to sucker you in with the cheapest price. Oh mate, don't worry, it's only $50 per week. Mate, that's over $200 a month. I'm yet to find something in Australia that is priced per week that actually ends up being a good deal. It's just a psychological ploy. How else are they going to get you to pay that exorbitant...
Nah. Jesus, yeah, that's that apartment too bougie. That apartment too top tier. That's too good of an apartment, bro. Stay away. $650 per week, bro. That's crazy. That must be very nice inside, though. I assume it gotta be very nice inside. That's crazy.
Price in rent. Oh yeah, but it's only $650. Yeah, but per week. Well, I guess if you don't like it, you can always move back home. I haven't moved back yet, and I don't plan on doing it anytime soon. If you think Australia's expensive, the UK's worse. You pay probably just as much, and they pay you half the amount. If you want to live like that in the cold and dreary, you're welcome to it, mate. And if you want to see some other weird facts that might help you move to Australia, check this video out. See you soon.
And we might pay just as much in the US, and I just don't know. I don't know. I don't pay that much for rent, and I'm sure most Australians don't pay that much for rent. That was just, it must have been a very nice apartment. And yeah, we have apartments that are that expensive. You just don't catch me around any of them. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion, you can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy Neal, out.